Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Sports Corner. I hope you enjoyed the special 100th episode last week, and we have a lot to catch up on this week. I'm Cole Young, and I'll get right to it. First and foremost, it's officially that time of year. The NCAA March Madness tournament has officially begun. The round of 64, which is the opening round of the tournament, kicked off yesterday and continues through today. The tournament began with number 9 Michigan State handedly beating Mississippi State 69-51. Following that, in their first tournament appearance since 1977, Duquesne University upset BYU in the first major upset of the tournament. If you're watching the morning broadcast of this show, there are several matchups to watch today. Right about now, FAU and Northwestern are tipping off. At 9:40, we'll get the matchup of Baylor and Colgate, and our local SDSU facing off with UAB at 10:45. The most important games today will obviously be the number 1 seed teams, with number 1 Purdue taking on Grambling at 4:25, number 1 UConn playing Stetson at 11:45, and number 1 Houston opening the tournament with Longwood tonight at 6:20. The 4th number 1 seed, UNC, beat number 16 Wagner yesterday. Tomorrow, all 32 teams that won either yesterday or today will move on to the next round and fight for a spot in the Sweet 16. Full disclosure, I've never been very great at filling out a March Madness bracket, although I did predict Duquesne's upset yesterday. Anyway, for fun, I figured I'd share my Elite 8 teams. We can see how accurate my picks are on next week's show. So here are my predictions for the final 8 teams that will remain in the tournament. UConn, Iowa State, Houston, Kentucky, Purdue, Arizona, Texas, and North Carolina. The teams I have a feeling might upset some people, and by some people I mean me, are Gonzaga, Tennessee, Baylor, and Marquette. Like I said, next week we'll see how close I was, and fingers crossed. Next week, I'll make my prediction for my national champion. For the women's bracket, the madness tips off today. The first matchup of North Carolina and Michigan State tipped off just about an hour ago. The teams to watch for the women's bracket are last year's champions LSU, and the 2 SoCal teams, USC and UCLA, and of course, the Iowa Hawkeyes led by Caitlin Clark. Local team UCI made their way into the tournament as a 13 seed and will face off with number 4 Gonzaga tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. ESPN gives UCI just a 3% chance to win, but literally anything can happen in these tournaments. Here are my predictions for the Elite 8 teams that I believe will be fighting for a Final Four spot in the women's bracket. USC, UConn, Gonzaga, NC State, South Carolina, Oregon State, LSU, and of course, Iowa. March Madness is called Madness for a reason. No-name schools, like Duquesne, upset historically dominant programs, small schools and players become household names, and all the craziness happens over a period of just about 2 weeks. For the men, the March Madness tournament concludes with the NCAA championship game on Monday, April 8th at State Farm Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. The women's championship game will be on Sunday, April 7th at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse in Cleveland, Ohio. Be sure to watch as much college basketball as you can over these next 2 weeks because these games are some of the most electric, emotional, and entertaining events in all of sports. Before all the madness of basketball started, the NFL had its own period of insanity. The free agency period opened up, and it was an absolute whirlwind this season. This upcoming season, there's going to be dozens of new faces on new teams. So I figured I'd give a rapid-fire recap of who's headed where. I'll go position by position and tell you where the biggest names are now, and naturally, I'll start with the quarterbacks. The NFL world was rattled when Kirk Cousins signed a 4-year, $180 million deal with the Atlanta Falcons. Russell Wilson was released from Denver and signed a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Steelers, who also traded the Bears for Justin Fields, completely throwing a wrench in the NFL quarterback market. But the Bears are now poised to take a quarterback first overall in the draft since Fields is officially gone. To replace Cousins for now, the Vikings signed Sam Darnold but could draft another quarterback. Baker Mayfield signed a 3-year extension to stay with the Buccaneers. Drew Lock, who was a part of the Russell Wilson trade, left the Seahawks to join the Giants. While the quarterback carousel was pretty wild, the running back movements might be even crazier. A large portion of the league's top ball carriers are heading to new teams. Saquon Barkley is leaving the Giants to join the rival Eagles, who will be replacing DeAndre Swift, who's now in Chicago. Josh Jacobs departed Las Vegas to be part of the Packers' young offense, and to make room for him, the Packers released Aaron Jones, who signed the division rival Vikings. And to make room for him and to complete the weird running back free agent cycle, the Vikings released Alexander Mattison, who then signed with the Raiders. Those 3 pulled an odd kind of switcheroo. And to top that, Derrick Henry announced he's joining the Ravens, who will now have the most stacked rushing offense in the NFL. Tony Pollard is headed to Tennessee, Austin Eckler is now a Commander, Joe Mixon was traded to Houston, and a lot of solid running backs are still yet to sign. In the wide receiver department, most of the top free agents either re-sign with their current team or haven't yet signed. But there's still a few notable transactions. Gabe Davis signed a deal with the Jaguars. Hollywood Brown is now yet another weapon for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Darnell Mooney will join Kirk Cousins in Atlanta, and Calvin Ridley is leaving Jacksonville for Tennessee. Jerry Jeudy was traded from Denver to Cleveland, where he just signed a pretty big 3-year extension, and the Chargers traded their career receiving leader, Keenan Allen, to the Bears. There have been an insane amount of signings and trades on the defensive side of the ball, so I'll cover the major ones. Dolphins defensive lineman Christian Wilkins will play as a Las Vegas Raider after signing a deal for 4 years and $110 million. Ravens linebacker Patrick Queen will join the Steelers defense. Safety Justin Simmons was released by the Broncos and has yet to sign anywhere. CJ Gardner-Johnson is rejoining Philly. Kevin Byard is headed to the Bears, and Jordan Poyer will be playing in the Miami secondary. There are literally hundreds of other player movements and trades and signings, but it would take me literally days to go through all of them. There's still some big name free agents out there, so I'll keep you updated as they continue to sign. Switching to the other football, I mentioned the other week that the U.S. women's national team was headed to the Women's CONCACAF Gold Cup final to square off with Brazil. On March 10th, the U.S. won the Gold Cup with a 1-0 win over Brazil in front of a home crowd of over 31,000 fans in San Diego. A goal from team captain Lindsey Horan in the final moments of the first half was just enough to clinch the victory and for the U.S. to claim its 15th all-time title at a CONCACAF championship tournament. The crowd was the largest ever for a CONCACAF women's event hosted in the United States. The USA finished the tournament with 15 total goals, led by forward Jaden Shaw, who scored 4 times throughout the tournament. Shaw earned the Golden Ball Award, which is given to the best player of the tournament. Goalkeeper Alyssa Naher earned the Golden Glove as the best goalkeeper after she earned 4 shutouts in her 5 starts and cemented her place in history with her 3-save performance in the penalty shootout against Canada in the semifinal that I mentioned 2 weeks ago. The U.S. women will next compete in the She Believes Cup, which starts with a match against Japan on Saturday, April 6th. The F1 season is off and racing, and the 3rd race is this weekend. As a surprise to literally nobody, Max Verstappen has won both of the first 2 races, with his Red Bull teammate Checo Perez coming in 2nd place for both races. Ferrari has come in 3rd for both of these 2 races, with Carlos Sainz earning a spot on the podium in the 1st and Charles Leclerc in the 2nd. This weekend is the Australian Grand Prix, and because it's in Australia, the race will be at 9 p.m. Pacific time this Saturday. MLB spring training is wrapping up, and opening weekend starts next Thursday, but until then, enjoy all the college basketball you can. If everything I just said about March Madness doesn't sound appealing to you, then there's still NBA, NHL, F1, and so much more to enjoy this weekend, including the Hogue Classic Golf Tournament, which started on Wednesday this week and will continue at the Newport Beach Country Club throughout this weekend. So, like I said, there's more than enough sports to enjoy and to hold you over until next Friday's episode of Sports Corner. Be sure to come right back next week for more news and updates and to see how accurate I was in my basketball predictions. I'm Cole Young. Enjoy the first weekend of spring, and I'll see you next time.